You know, the LCS in North America used to be a content region over literally everything. Our biggest players, Doublelift, Scara, I mean, literally anybody from the TSM era were like some of the biggest content creators in the entire gaming space, let alone esports. I mean, they were just these larger than life figures. Documentary series dominated the space. Well, I mean, by dominated, TSM had like hundreds of thousands of viewers that would tune in to Legends each and every week, and it popped off, which then spawned a bunch of copycats, which eventually kind of led to the decline of the entire thing, and North American content has never been the same since. But there is one org that is finally figuring it out, and I've got faith that hopefully they can make this a permanent thing going forward. Now, a lot of people thought that if 100 Thieves was going to leave the LCS, that I would become a fan of Team Liquid. And I always held the point of view that I would never make that call until after everything was official, and I still, luckily, will never have to make it. But this is going to be my glazing session of TL, because man, do they get it. I think a lot of people get the perception that like maybe YouTube content just doesn't work anymore, and like North American esports is on the decline, yet somehow we're having peak viewership each and every year for League of Legends at Worlds. I mean, granted, a lot of that is T1, obviously, but it's not like the attention to LoL esports has gone away, nor has the care for the players. So what happened to the content? Well, we got complacent. Everybody saw the one thing that worked, tried to copy it, and from there, I mean, we didn't really do anything different. League content, for the most part, still looks the exact same way that it did back in 2018. And that's not necessarily a problem, because all of entertainment, for the most part, is just recycling ideas. MTV was the spawn of what most like mid to late 2010s YouTube content ended up being. We kind of like our generation grew up watching MTV and decided to replicate it. People take a lot of gripes with reaction content on YouTube, saying that it's cheap views, it's lazy content, but in reality, that's what a lot of people were actually chasing back when it just wasn't a thing. Reaction content and the fact that we lapped all that up was seen in the fact that everybody would freak out over Nielsen ratings and how many people were watching the same thing at one time. Your reaction content was the office water cooler talk that you would have on Mondays about Game of Thrones and about these shows, because you wanted to discuss things that you enjoy with like-minded people. That's what we are all chasing at the end of the day, and that's the whole point of content in general, is to drive a discussion, drive a point, drive a message, get to know other people. I mean, there's 20 billion different points, but still. And the face of the League landscape has changed everywhere else around the world. Co-streamers have become like the thing. And while that's a thing in North America, it's not as big as elsewhere. Let's look at the teams that went to Worlds, okay? When you look over at Europe, G2 has Kesha. And immediately once Nunu got picked from FlyQuest, everybody was like, what's Kesha's reaction? They picked this champion. What's this going to be like? And G2 has been able to milk him for content the entirety of Worlds. Anytime that he's got a clip, they're farming it and posting it immediately. Fnatic, I mean, they got the biggest face in the game right now in Kadril. I think a lot of people don't associate Fnatic and Kadril together still. Like, even though they are one and the same, they're signed to each other, it's the reason why he's able to co-stream the LEC. A lot of people still just take Kadril as Kadril. He's kind of outgrown anybody, but he does have that brand tied onto him. And then Mad Lions, I mean, it's a buy. Like, those are the big three. The three teams that you sent to Worlds have three of the biggest streamers and personalities attached with them that you can just use for content at all times. And there's always updates. There's always something going on at Worlds at all times, because all three of them are heavily involved. Now you look over to North America, well, it's not that we don't have co-streamers. Dom is more or less the Team Liquid guy. LS is more or less the FlyQuest guy. And 100 Thieves, well, regardless, we don't get the viewers that they do at all. Like, none of that group at all comes close to the viewership that Kadril and Abai and the European co-streamers have. So how do you make your way then into the space? How do you drive attention that will still allow your content to be seen? Well, you got to understand the content loop cycle. And I'll use one of the most famous examples out there right now, in the good old time.
You gotta give him that hawk too and spit on that thing. You get me?
Nobody and their mother thought this girl was gonna get famous, but at the end of the day, she did. She had a viral moment on TikTok that everybody latched onto almost immediately, and she went from being the content that people were reacting to being the creator herself. And you have to understand that cycle, because you need to create content that will get lapped up into the general audience and like the general esports audience for now, and then hopefully even beyond that, which would then propel you to become a bigger name. Team Liquid is finally starting to do this, and they're one of the few that's doing it in real time. Everybody's been watching over the last few days the coaching clips that they will release immediately after games. And we're not even just talking like immediately after best of ones, we're talking moments after single games within best of 3 series, having them up on Twitter for people to react to, of which all the co-streamers, including Cadril, including Dom, everybody is seeing this stuff, and it helps them drive the narrative because they're finally understanding that you have to be quick with this stuff. No LCS team has figured out TikTok yet for whatever reason, but the biggest thing with social media now compared to 10 years ago is the speed at which we expect updates. Nobody's willing to wait 2 weeks for those docuseries to come out anymore unless it's a major moment. And even then, Optic has already shown they released their champs video, I think a week, like the same week that they won champs. It was already out. Or no, I think that was the Major 4 video, if I'm not mistaken. But people lack the patience nowadays, and you can't sit there and be like, oh, well, I wish that people were... They're not. You got to adapt or die. And Team Liquid finally has, so they've been releasing everything in real time. Reactions to each draw up on YouTube. Coaching clips with Spawn out immediately. Spawn has basically become a content creator for TL while also being a head coach. He has driven more attention for this org in the last 72 hours. It's insane. But Team Liquid showing that they're the first that finally gets it, that you have to do all this in real time, that you do have to have a camera on you all the time to be able to farm those clips, to get them out there, to get people to react to them, so then eventually you can create your own content with those people that were in the clips, and they will do their own numbers on your own channels. That's what starts creating these internet celebrities, these internet personalities that we saw with the likes of Doublelift and Bjergsen. Now, it being Spawn is a little bit different than it being like one of the players, obviously, or in TL's case, like I still really wish that they had an official content creator that was signed with them that is like seen as Team Liquid's like face of the program. I still look at Miss Chim Chim and be like, I don't know why she's not involved for this. She's a great ambassador for the program, already LPP. Everything just makes sense. I mean, maybe she doesn't want to. Maybe they've had those conversations. I'm still not privy to that type of stuff. So I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouths here. But I mean, it still just makes a ton of sense to me. But they get it. And the lesson that every LCS team, especially, well, the 6 remaining going into next year, the thing that you need to take away from all this is that you need to up your pace pretty significantly. You need to be able to control the narratives around your team, around your results, around content in general. Because if you can't do that, look at what could have happened after game 1 of this series, where the narrative goes out of hand. If they bounce back in games 2 and 3, it's like, oh, well, great. You know, glad they won and got it done, but they shouldn't have struggled as much. Instead, the whole conversation around this Team Liquid series now, well, it's kind of out the window because they're playing FlyQuest, but everybody's focusing on Spawn. And that is Team Liquid's direct doing. They had control over it. They had the say over it. And that's ultimately another point of what content is. It's you being able to control the narrative around your team in the public eye to make sure it is in your best interest to sell the most amount of tickets, to get the most amount of fans, and everything else. Team Liquid is still number 2 in terms of the fandom within the LCS, as seen by the emotes that were sold in the last 2 months. Cloud9's, you know, you could argue it might be the better emote, but the point is, if you have more TL fans that would buy your TL emote, it wouldn't matter. So you're still playing a catch-up game. But Team Liquid is finally understanding the right pathway to do it. To Cloud9's credit, they understand the podcast side of things. Podcasting is actually fantastic content right now. Longer form videos do incredibly well on YouTube that you can then cut up into clips and make into digestible smaller pieces. They have that with Medios on their side, and it plays well into the C9 base, even if those clips don't really take off beyond like the C9 group. Like, they don't seem to have like the better understanding of like general gaming trends, or at least like the league specific creators don't. But it's a starting point. It's a basis to go off of. To wrap all this up, I saw a Twitter thread the other day from AMP, who is like a content creator group, I believe, but they basically said that Kai Cenat's channel has basically become what iCarly used to be back when, but modern era. And it just goes to reinforce the point that it's not like the content game in esports, in sports, in gaming, and lifestyle, you name it. It's not like it's changing all that much as time goes on. There's only so many new ideas that we can all have in life. But you constantly need to just have these little tweaks and take some of the best things from pop culture, from other areas, and try and blend it and make it your own. All of these teams have budgets to try and pitch some of these ideas. It's just a matter of finding the right people, because by all means, you're a talent agency as an esports org. That's what you are, both in terms of the players and the creators. So keep bringing in new creators that will help give you new ideas, that will help propel your narratives going forward, and maybe you'll come up with your own series or your own natural content that people will be looking at in 10 years and be like, hey, X show or X YouTube video back when kind of set the precedent for them doing this now. And maybe we can get back to North America being a content region, because obviously we're not going to win Worlds anytime soon. But if people are watching us and attending our events and selling out tickets, that's all that matters.